Okay, I'm not playing. I don't have a new intro. A lot of you guys have been asking me to like switch it up, but the truth is, I don't know what to do. So I am asking you guys to help me. You know, I need like some music. I need to like get really innovative with how I like start my videos. So you should have been given another assignment, and you're gonna use this video to complete that assignment. It's titled Urbanization. All right, this really should not take long. It's a really quick video. And if you can, as you can see, there aren't many questions that you guys have to answer, so you can thank me later. All right, let's talk about urbanization. What is the learning objective? After watching this video and answering the questions on your assignment, you should be able to analyze the changes that were occurring in the United States due to the fact that everyone was moving from the rural areas to the major cities. So first things first, let's define urbanization. Urbanization is the movement of people moving from the countryside to the city, okay? People are deciding to not pursue their career as a farmer and instead work, let's say, in a factory, all right? The question becomes, why were so many people moving? You've probably heard me say this before, but the number one reason why people move, economic opportunities. And it is here on my list, jobs. People were after jobs. People were pursuing factory jobs and leaving the jobs in the farming industry. Why were people leaving the farming industry and deciding to join a more industrial work setting? Well, if you remember anything from populism, technology did boost crop production in the form of farm machinery, but farm machinery started to replace individual workers. So the demand for farmers did take a slight decline, but the demand for industrial workers in factory settings was really on the rise. All right, so jobs, always number one, despite it being at the bottom. Number two, the railroad industry. People had an opportunity to actually move, and they were able to move at a faster pace with the railroads as opposed to a horse and carriage. You have improved roads to get from point A to point B. And last but not least, people just wanted a different setting. People wanted to kind of like start enjoying life. And if you wanted to have a good time, those good times were in the city, not in those rural areas that they were accustomed to. What are some examples of having a good time? Going to the theater, going to the museums. There was entertainment available. It's not just work, 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 work. Now they can work and play. So those are the reasons why people are moving into cities. Improved transportation, entertainment, as well as job opportunities. Where were these people going? They were going to 3 cities. Well, they were going to a lot of cities, but the top 3 cities were New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. New York City is still the most populated city in the entire United States. Why? Jobs. There's entertainment as well as transportation. You can get around a lot quicker in New York City than in Miami, Florida. Now, with everyone moving into the city, and let's not count out immigrants, at this time in history, we're experiencing mass migration to the United States. We have 2 inspection stations, one located on the East Coast, that's Ellis Island, and another located on the West Coast, that's Angel Island. So we have this large influx of immigrants moving. The new immigrants are moving for economic opportunities. So in addition, I just want to go back, in addition to these reasons, you could also add the fact that increase in immigration led to the growth of cities as well, because all of our immigrants are moving to this area because that's where the jobs are located. So let's start by discussing problems with urbanization. These areas were not prepared to accommodate the amount of people that were moving into these relatively small areas. One particular problem dealing with urbanization and the rapid growth of it was overcrowding and the lack of proper housing. Most of those that were living in the city were living in what we call tenements. That will be on your text. Tenements. Tenements are single room homes, single rooms, that did not meet the minimal standard of living, meaning no running water, no light, no heat. It was just a hot boiler mess. All right, and if you can take a look at this picture, you would have families of 8 to 10 people living in one room. You would have only one toilet. That water wasn't running properly because there was no sewer system. So it was a really, really bad situation. And I mean, they really had no options because that was the setup for most of the housing in these major cities. How did we solve this problem? We built more homes. And because these cities are not as large or have like a lot of room, we have to get a little sophisticated in terms of how we built those homes. So these major cities started to build what we call row houses. These are homes that are literally built side by side. So if you've ever been to the city of New York, you will see hundreds of row houses. And it was built that way in an effort to save space and to accommodate this rapid growth in these cities. Second problem, remember, everyone's in one location. These cities were not prepared to accommodate these individuals. So having a sewer system, having protocols set up for who's going to pick up the garbage, where would the garbage go. None of these things were ever discussed or even thought of because they did not anticipate the growth to happen at that pace. So you run into another problem. What's that problem? Pollution and contaminated water. Like I said, no one is picking up the garbage. No one knows where to put the garbage. And as a result of that, as a result of having a lack of sanitation and just standards, you're gonna have people getting sick, which results in hundreds of deaths. Okay, so diseases are spreading like wildfire. These cities had to come up with a solution, and they had to come up with it fast. Because remember, you don't want people dying. You actually need them to work in the factories. So what's the solution? The solution is, let's create a sanitation department. Let's hire individuals. I feel like okay. Let's hire individuals to pick up the garbage. Ding, 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 duh. And let's create areas where we will dispose of this waste. Let's hire individuals to keep the streets clean. Let's develop a sewer system in order to prevent contaminated water in our cities. So these departments that you guys see in your cities today, like in the city of Miramar, Miami Gardens, Miami Beach, they all have a sanitation department because of this event in history. This was not a good way to live. This is not how you keep people happy and healthy and keep them in those factories working long hours, low wages. All right, let's move on. Third problem of urbanization, the traffic. It was a disaster. People could not get around from point A to point B. There wasn't enough roads. The roads that were there were not wide enough to accommodate the amount of people. So it created a lot of congestion, chaos, and I'm pretty sure it turned violent. Think about our city today. Thank God I'm not traveling 30 or 45 minutes to get to work, but there have been plenty of occasions where people are experiencing road rage. I mean, people are literally getting out of the car, popping the trunk, bang, bang. I mean, it's crazy. So could you imagine what these cities underwent during this time in history? So the cities had to come up with another solution. What could we do to alleviate traffic congestion? Because everyone can't be on the road at the same damn time. It just won't happen. Their solution was public transportation. So if you've ever been to any of these major cities like New York City and Chicago, they are best known for having an amazing form of public transportation. I'm talking about subways, electric trolleys, highways. I mean, you name it, they have it. If you live in New York City, you don't even need a car. Like, you don't need a car. Public transportation is that fast, but most importantly, that reliable, that having private transportation is more of a luxury than a need. Now, when you compare New York City to, let's say, Miami, you're gonna need a car, all right? But we're talking about major cities. Not to discredit Miami, but major cities that's accommodating millions of people on a daily basis. Public transportation was the best thing that they could have created to solve this problem. And if you take a look, most major cities have great public transportation. And despite you being major or minor, cities in general have found the value in having some sort of public transportation. So we just talked about what is urbanization, why people are moving to these cities, where they're moving, problems dealing with urbanization. But let's kind of change gears and take a look at the city itself. So with having all of these people living in your cities, it's almost impossible to avoid some sort of corruption or underhanded mess when dealing with people, because humans are by nature good and also evil. So we start to see these organizations pop up in our major cities, and these organizations are called political machines. You will need to know what is a political machine, not only on my test but also on the EOC. A political machine is an organization that is controlled by a leader that we call a boss, okay? This group, led by the boss, was created to gain loyalty for candidates that they may prefer to have in a position of power. So I just want to make some things clear. The boss is not the mayor. The boss is not the commissioner in the city. The boss is an individual that is connected to someone that is working for the city. And the boss wants to continue to help that elected official by creating this organization that will reach out to the community. So in other words, I view the political machine as like the middleman. I wish I had my pen. I don't have it. But you have your elected official, you have the political boss with his organization called a political machine, and that organization deals directly with the people living in that city. You got it? So if there are any accusations of political corruption, it doesn't hit the elected official, it instead hits the political machine, which in essence is not working for the city. That was a lot. I'll explain it in more detail in class. But what I need you to know right now in order to complete your assignment is the definition of a political machine, who controls it, and what is their overall purpose. Their overall purpose is to always maintain loyalty from the citizens that will have to keep that elected official in office. How do you keep someone loyal to you? You give them something. Okay, so if you take a look at my PowerPoint, I'm going to repeat it again because this is something that students don't gravitate to that easily. Organization controlled by a boss overall purpose is to get citizens to vote for the candidates of their choice in exchange for services. What are some services that the political machine and the boss can provide to the citizens living in that city? Jobs, which is something everyone wants. General services, you could be helping someone get their citizenship, because in most cases, the people that they serve were immigrants. You could also provide them with housing, food assistance, anything that they needed. I want to highlight that immigrants most definitely benefited from the services that the political machines and bosses provided them. Why were they the political machine's number one customer? It's because in most cases the boss was a second generation immigrant. And if you ask me, the immigrants are the most vulnerable to influence and gain their loyalty. And in this case, loyalty, because you will see the word loyalty on your test, equates to votes. If I'm loyal to you and you want me to vote a certain way, I'm going to do it because 6 months ago when I didn't have a job, you provided me with one. 6 months ago when I didn't have food to put on the table, you provided me with food assistance. So that's how the political machines maintain their power and maintain their position in the community. So in most cases, the political machine and the boss was viewed as like a local hero to most people. For your test, we always focus on the most famous political machine, which is Tammany Hall, and the most famous political boss, who goes by the name of Boss Tweed. Okay, Boss Tweed is infamous for engaging in a practice called grafting. You need to know the definition of grafting. Grafting involves someone using your political power for personal gain. I repeat, grafting involves a person using their political power for personal gain. Now, if you have political power, you should be using that power to benefit the community, to benefit the citizens. You should not be using your position of power for personal gain. If you're looking for personal gain, then you should not be in a position where you are to service people. All right, so let me give you a quick example. Let's say I am looking to open up a restaurant in the city of Miramar, and I'm having difficulty getting my inspection approved. I hit up Boss Tweed and I'll say, hey, I failed my inspection for the second time. Can you help me out? Because I know you know people that know people that know people. Boss Tweed is going to say, okay, I'll make sure that third time you pass the inspection, but I'm going to need $500. And when I say $500, I mean $500, okay? So, what are you going to do? Are you going to take a chance at passing the inspection on your own? Or will you hand over $500 and now you're guaranteed to get the inspection passed and approved? You're going to give them the $500. Now, that $500 that you're handing over to Boss Tweed, will that go to the city? No. The $500 will go inside of his pocket in his bank account. And that's what grafting looks like. He's using his position of power because he knows someone for personal gain. And that is illegal. And it was happening back then, and it's still happening today. Now, despite him being viewed as a local hero, his popularity started to decline due to this one particular guy that goes by the name of Thomas Nast. Did I pronounce that right? Thomas Nast? Yeah, y'all check me in class. Let me know. So Thomas Nast is famous for his political cartoons. And if you know anything about political cartoons, you're drawing a picture or a cartoon to convey a message. In most cases, if you ask me, during this time in history, they were negative because the government in general was viewed as a negative institution that was only there to service the rich and wealthy. So you have this artist creating political cartoons in the city, and he's conveying a message that Boss Tweed is corrupt, Boss Tweed is undermining the democratic process, and he shouldn't have this type of power in our cities. As people continue to view his cartoons, his popularity started to decline. And what made his cartoons so unique is that despite everyone else writing articles about Boss Tweed, his cartoons stood out because most of his followers, most of his supporters could not read. But they gravitated towards the picture, and despite their lack of reading skills, they were able to identify the overall message, which is, hey, he's not as good as we think he is.